Hi, Rama. It's week 25, day 3 of our Bible narrative reading plan. Today we're in 1 Kings chapters 15 and 16. And as you've already read the chapters, you know that there's a lot going on here, more than we can talk about in this video. What I want to try to help us do is just get the high points, maybe get some big ideas in place to help you as you read through. At the beginning of chapter 15, we see that we're in the reign of Abijam, and he's king in Judah. We see that he walked in the sins of his father before him. His heart was not wholly true to the Lord his God as the heart of David, his father. And we know that David is farther back. It's his grandfather, great-grandfather, but the writer of the book is referring to him. And all these kings, you see, they're walking in the way of their father. And if it's a good father, then it's David. If it's a bad father, it's Jeroboam. Both of those are the archetypes, the classic example of what it means to be a good king or a bad king. And so in this case, David is the good king, but his offspring Abijam is not reigning in a similar manner. But we see that God shows mercy to Jerusalem because of the sake of David and all the good that he did. So we get to the end of his reign there in verse 8. Now, in verse 9, we see an important king, King Asa, because King Asa actually does rule well. He does walk in the ways of his father David. He seeks after the Lord his God. He does right in the eyes of the Lord, verse 11. And so now remember, Asa is reigning in Judah, so that's the tribe of Judah, not the big northern kingdom, but he's in the southern kingdom. He takes away the male cult prostitutes. He removes the idols. He does many good things. He even takes his mother away from being the queen mother because she has committed idolatry as well. But we do see something strange, verse 14, that he doesn't take the high places down. He doesn't take the altars down, which is kind of strange for the fact that he's being referenced as being a good king. And overall, he is. But he reigns for a very long time. So the rest of what we see in chapters 15 and 16, all these other kings that are mentioned, they're reigning in Israel, the northern kingdom, while Asa is still ruling in the southern kingdom. So Asa lives to be an old age. We see that there at the end of his section, verse 23 and 24. We get a hint in verse 23 that perhaps everything wasn't right with Asa. It says in his old age he was diseased in his feet. So perhaps this issue with the covenant and the political activity he's doing there in that big section 16 through 24, perhaps some of this is frowned upon by God. We would have to get into a deeper discussion and cross-references and all that to go into that. But as I pointed out, everything else you see, all these other kings mentioned in the rest of chapters 15 and 16 are ruling in the northern kingdom of Israel, while Asa is ruling in the southern kingdom of Judah. And you notice what is the refrain through all of these kings? They don't walk in the ways of God. They follow after their father, Jeroboam. We see that this is true of Nadab. We see that this is true of Baasha. Notice that Baasha, verses 33 and 34, in the beginning of chapter 16, he's the same guy mentioned earlier in chapter 15. So he's mentioned in the earlier part of 15 in relationship to Asa, and then we get more of the formal report of his kingdom, of his time, his reign, there at the beginning of chapter 16. Then you get that Eli reigns in Israel. Again, all of these people are not walking in the ways of God. There are no good kings in the northern kingdom. In their history, the northern kingdom never has a good king. The southern kingdom has a few, not many. The northern kingdom never has a good king. We continue, we see the reign of Omri. And then at the end of chapter 16, we get to a more influential king, one that we get more information about, King Ahab. We're going to see that Ahab is worse than Jeroboam. We're told that here that as you read the chapter 17, and let's see, it's actually in the end of chapter 15 that Jeroboam's house is wiped out. There are no survivors, just as had been prophesied. And then when Ahab comes on the scene, he's referred to as being even worse than Jeroboam. And we're going to see in chapter 17 and 18, as we're looking at the life of Elijah, the prophet, someone that we think about more often. We spend more time studying Elijah. His ministry is taking place during the reign of King Ahab. So we'll see more about that as going forward. But just keep that in mind as you're reading the difference in the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, the difference that the northern kingdom never has a good king. The southern kingdom at times does, and right now in these two chapters, Asa is reigning as king during most of this time. There are good things happening in Judah. There is a bit of spiritual revival. Good things are happening for Judah, even as things are not going well in the northern kingdom because they are not seeking after the Lord their God. Here's a summary of today's reading. For more information, go to tunemyheart.org.